My wife cheated on me with her boss, secretly sold our family house for $350, $0 to fund their escape, then manipulated me into signing a fake agreement that gave her everything. Now she's suing me for half the estate, and I just found out she's been planning this for years. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am, sitting in a mess I didn't see coming. It all started with little things, her sneaking out late, her phone always locked, and the way she'd get defensive whenever I asked about her day. At first, I chalked it up to stress at work or her being busy with her new job. She's been climbing the corporate ladder, always talking about her boss, Lisa, like she was her new best friend. But then I started noticing the small cracks in her story, things she'd slip up on or outright lie about. One night, I was scrolling through her phone, just casual, trying to see if she'd left any clues about where she'd been. I know snooping is bad, but after months of her secretive behavior, I couldn't help myself. That's when I saw it, messages between her and Lisa, talking about plans, secret meetings, and references to our future. My stomach dropped. I read more, and what I found was worse than I expected. Explicit messages, pictures, even talk of sneaking away together. She wasn't just friends with her boss, they'd been sleeping together for months, maybe longer. The thing is, I didn't want to believe it at first. I kept telling myself she'd deny it, call me paranoid or jealous. But the evidence was undeniable. I saw the dates, the times, the way she described their sex, hot, raw, and secretive. It hit me hard. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. When I confronted her the next day, she spun this elaborate lie about how I was overreacting, that Lisa was just a friend, that I was insecure. She said she'd never cheat on me, that I was imagining things. But I knew better. I could see it in her eyes. She was lying. Still, she kept up the act, trying to gaslight me into doubting what I saw. That night I couldn't sleep. I felt betrayed, angry, and incredibly hurt. How could she do this to me? We had built a life together, plans for the future, a house we loved. I thought we had something real. Turns out she was planning her escape all along. I started digging deeper, trying to find out how long this had been going on, whether there was more I didn't know. That's when I uncovered something else, something that made everything worse. She'd been secretly selling our family house, the only thing we truly owned, for $350, $0. I found out she'd been doing it behind my back, talking to a shady real estate agent, all while pretending everything was fine. The pieces fell into place. She'd been manipulating me from the start, convincing me to sign papers I never fully understood, all so she could get her hands on the money and run. I found a fake agreement she'd made me sign, which technically gave her everything: our house, our savings, the life we'd built. She'd lied so convincingly, I almost doubted my own memory. But the worst part, I saw her planning this for years, probably even before we got married. She'd been working on her escape route, and I was just a pawn in her game. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest again. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. She'd lied to my face, cheated on me, sold off our home, and manipulated me into giving her everything I had. And all the while she was smiling, acting like the perfect wife. I was furious, but also heartbroken. I didn't know whether to cry, scream, or just sit there in disbelief. How could someone I trusted so completely turn out to be this manipulative, selfish person? It's a sinking feeling, realizing your entire life was built on lies, and the person you loved most was just using you. From that moment, everything changed. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. Part of me just wanted to pack my bags and leave, cut her out of my life completely. But another part, the stubborn part, wanted justice, wanted her to pay for what she'd done. I started planning my next move, knowing it would be easy. She'd taken everything, our home, our money, my trust, and I'd have to fight to get any of it back. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about reclaiming what was mine and making sure she didn't get away with it. I didn't expect it to get worse, but it did, and I'd soon find out just how deep her plans went. After I found out about the secret sale of our house and the fake agreement she had me sign, Everything felt like it was collapsing inside me. I couldn't believe she'd been planning this for years, right under my nose. The woman I married, the woman I trusted, was a con artist in her own right. I remember packing around the living room, trying to process how she could have done this all behind my back. My mind was racing with anger, betrayal, and a sense of helplessness. How do you even start to fight someone who's been manipulating you so thoroughly? I knew I had to act fast. The first thing I did was dig into the legal papers she made me sign. I found the fake agreement, some kind of convoluted document that she'd forged or manipulated to make me sign away my rights. I wasn't a lawyer, but I could see enough to know it was a sham. She had convinced me it was some sort of property transfer or settlement, but in reality it handed everything over to her. I felt sick just reading it. She'd lied so convincingly, even when I questioned her. She'd spin some story about how she was just protecting us, protecting our future. Yeah, right. I also discovered she'd been working with a shady real estate agent, someone who had no problem helping her sell our home for top dollar. It all seemed so calculated. She sold our house for $350, $0, more than enough to start fresh somewhere else, maybe even with Lisa in some fancy city. I was furious thinking about how she'd used our years together as a cover, all the while planning her escape. It was like I'd been played for a fool, and she'd been laughing all the way to the bank. At this point, I knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. I contacted a lawyer, someone I found through a friend who knew the ins and outs of real estate and family law. I wanted to understand my rights, whether I could contest the sale or at least get some of the money back. The lawyer told me that since she'd sold the house without my knowledge or consent, I might have grounds to challenge the sale and the fake agreement. But it wouldn't be easy. She'd done her homework and she'd planned this meticulously. Meanwhile, I started digging into her phone and emails even more. I needed to know if she'd left any other clues, any other lies she'd told. That's when I uncovered the most shocking thing. She'd been planning to leave me for Lisa, her boss, for years. Not just secretly cheating, she'd been building her new life, saving money, and staging her escape. It explained her coldness, her distance, her constant lying. She'd been setting everything up so she could run away, leaving me with nothing. The realization hit me like a punch in the gut. It was all a long con, her way of taking everything I had and starting fresh with someone she clearly loved more than she loved me. I felt numb for days after that. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't even cry anymore. All I could do was replay everything in my head, her lies, the secret meetings, the fake papers, the sale of the house. I wondered how I'd been so blind. I thought about the years we spent together, building a life, and how she'd been planning her exit the whole time. It made me question everything I thought I knew about her and about us. In the midst of all this chaos, I realized I had to take control of the situation. I couldn't let her get away with this. I started gathering evidence, screenshots, copies of emails, bank statements showing the sale, the fake agreement. I knew I needed proof to fight her in court. I also considered confronting her again, but I knew she'd just lie her way out of it, spin some new story. No, I had to be strategic. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt humiliated, angry, and betrayed, but I also knew I couldn't let her win. I was furious that she'd manipulated me, that she'd taken everything I thought was ours, and that she was now trying to sue me for half the estate, something I didn't even realize she was planning until I uncovered her schemes. She'd been planning her escape for years, and I was just a pawn in her game. I had to fight back, not just for the money, but to reclaim my dignity and show her that I wasn't going to be a victim of her lies. This was only the beginning. I was about to go to war with her, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. But I was done playing nice. I was ready to fight for what was left of my life before she took everything. The betrayal ran so deep I wasn't sure if I'd ever trust anyone again. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let her get away with this without a fight. After I gathered enough evidence and contacted my lawyer, I started realizing just how deep her plans went. She wasn't just trying to run away with a few bucks. She was orchestrating a full-blown scheme to wipe me out financially and emotionally. I found out she'd been manipulating the entire situation for years, slowly chipping away at our assets, convincing me to sign papers I didn't understand, and secretly selling our house behind my back. It was like discovering. The woman I married had been playing me from day one. The worst part was that she'd been convincing me everything was fine, pretending to be the perfect wife, while she was planning her escape with her boss, Lisa. I couldn't wrap my head around how someone could be so cold, so calculated. I remember confronting her again, trying to get her to admit what she'd done, but she just spun her usual lies. She said I was paranoid, that I was jealous, that I was imagining things. She even had the nerve to call me insecure, as if I was the one at fault for trusting her. She told me I was overreacting, that everything would be fine and that I was just making trouble for no reason. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I could see through her lies. I knew she'd been planning her escape for years, saving money, talking to Lisa, and even getting her hands on our savings account. I found bank statements showing withdrawals she never told me about, and they added up to a significant chunk of money, enough to fund her and Lisa's new life somewhere far away. It confirmed what I'd suspected. She'd been using me, lying to me, and secretly planning her departure while I was clueless. One of the most shocking discoveries was the fake agreement she made me sign. It looked official, legal-looking papers that supposedly transferred our property rights, but in reality, it was a sham. She'd forged signatures, manipulated legal language, and convinced me it was necessary for some kind of settlement. The truth was, she'd been using it to strip me of my rights, giving herself full control over everything. I felt sick looking at it. She'd lied to my face, convinced me to sign away my rights, and then used that document as leverage to do whatever she wanted. I started questioning everything. How long had she been planning this? Had she been cheating on me long before I knew? The answer was yes. I found messages where she talked about Lisa as if she was her soulmate, her escape plan, her future. She'd been fantasizing about leaving me behind, starting over with Lisa, for years. It explained her coldness, her distance, her constant lying. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was building a new life behind my back, and I was just a pawn in her game. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how much she'd lied and manipulated. It wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about the fact that she'd used me, lied to me, and betrayed everything we had. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind. I thought we had a real connection, but it turns out she'd been planning this for years, waiting for the perfect moment to take everything and run. I knew I had to act fast. I contacted a lawyer and started the process of challenging the sale of the house, which she'd done without my knowledge. I also wanted to get a court order to freeze any assets she might try to move or hide. I realized I had to fight her in court, gather even more evidence, and show that her entire scheme was built on lies and deception. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice and clearing my name. Emotionally, I was a mess. I felt humiliated, angry, and broken. I'd trusted her with everything, my heart, my life, my future, and she'd thrown it all away for a quick escape. I kept replaying the moments when I should have seen the signs, when I should have questioned her more, but I was blinded by love. Now I was paying the price. The betrayal cut so deep I wondered if I'd ever recover from it. But I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to fight, not just for the money, but for my dignity, for the truth. It's hard to explain how it feels to realize the person you loved and trusted most was capable of this level of deception. The shock, the anger, the heartbreak, it's all overwhelming. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was mine and making sure she couldn't do this to anyone else. I was determined to see this through, no matter how ugly it got. Because in the end, I knew the truth needed to come out, and I wasn't going to stop until I got justice. By the time I had all my evidence organized, screenshots, bank statements, forged documents, and the emails confirming her plans, I knew I had a battle on my hands. I wasn't just fighting her in court. I was fighting the betrayal that had shattered my trust and my sense of stability. The more I dug into her schemes, the angrier I got. She'd been lying for so long, manipulating everyone around her, and I was just the last piece of her puzzle to fall. I met with my lawyer again, going over everything I found. We decided to file a formal challenge to the sale of our house, citing that she'd sold it without my consent and under false pretenses. I also wanted to contest the fake agreement she made me sign, arguing it was forged and invalid. The lawyer warned me it wouldn't be easy. She had her own legal team, probably paid off or at least well prepared. But I was determined. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything. Meanwhile, I started reaching out to some financial advisors and real estate experts. I needed to understand the full scope of what she'd taken from us. Turns out she'd managed to siphon off a lot of our savings, and she'd hidden some of the money in offshore accounts. I was stunned. I thought I knew her, but she'd been hiding her true nature all along. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how much she'd planned this, how she'd been building her escape route for years. One of the most shocking moments came when I found out she'd been secretly talking to Lisa about the sale, about how she wanted to start fresh and leave me with nothing. I found emails where Lisa was encouraging her, talking about a new beginning, and even discussing how to split the money once she got away. It was like I was reading a novel written by a criminal. The trust I had in her was completely shattered. I felt like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I also discovered she'd been manipulating our friends and family. She convinced some of our mutual friends that I was the one causing trouble, that I was paranoid or insecure. She played the victim, making herself look innocent while painting me as the villain. It was classic gaslighting. She'd been doing it for years. I knew I had to be careful about who I could trust from now on. The whole situation made me realize how easy it was for someone to hide their true intentions behind a mask of normalcy. The emotional toll was brutal. I was angry, yes, but mostly I felt betrayed by her, by the woman I thought I knew. I kept questioning myself. How did I miss all the signs? Why didn't I see the clues? But deep down, I knew it wasn't just about missing signs. It was about her choosing to deceive me, to use me, to destroy what we had. That realization hurt worse than anything else. Despite all this, I knew I had to keep my head clear. I started documenting everything, every conversation, every suspicious transaction, every lie she told. I wanted to make sure I had irrefutable proof, because I knew she'd try to twist things in court. I also started thinking about what I really wanted: to get her out of my life completely, to regain control of my finances, and to protect myself from further manipulation. One night, I sat down and made a decision. I couldn't just fight her legally. I had to prepare myself emotionally too. I started seeing a counselor, trying to process what had happened and figure out how to move forward. It wasn't just about winning the legal battle. It was about healing from the betrayal and rebuilding my sense of self. I knew it would take time, maybe years, but I was determined to come out of this stronger. Looking back, I realized how naive I was. I trusted her completely, and that trust was exploited. But I also learned a harsh lesson: never underestimate how far someone will go when they're desperate or selfish. I've become more cautious, more aware, and more determined to protect myself in the future. I don't know what the final outcome will be, but I do know I won't let her ruin me completely. I'll fight for what's right, for my dignity, and for the truth. Because if there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define you. The months that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles, emotional turmoil, and intense self-reflection. I stayed focused on gathering every piece of evidence I could find, knowing that her lies and manipulations wouldn't be easy to counter. My lawyer worked tirelessly, preparing our case to challenge the sale of the house and the forged agreement. Meanwhile, I was also trying to piece together my own mental and emotional state, something that was just as battered as my bank account. One of the biggest shocks came when I learned she had already filed a lawsuit herself, claiming half the estate. She was trying to spin it as if I had abandoned her, that I was the one who betrayed her, and that she deserved her share of everything. It was so brazen, I almost laughed. She'd been planning this the entire time, and now she was trying to turn it around on me. I knew her tactics: playing the victim, twisting facts, and trying to manipulate the court as she had manipulated me. I decided I needed to be even more strategic. I worked with my lawyer to gather evidence that proved she'd been planning her escape for years. her secret savings, her conversations with Lisa, the fake documents, and the sale of our house. I also hired a private investigator to verify some of my suspicions about offshore accounts and hidden assets. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deeply she'd gone. She'd been building her new life behind my back, all while pretending to be the loving wife. Throughout this process, I kept feeling a mix of anger and sadness. I was furious at her betrayal, but I also mourned the loss of the woman I thought I knew. I kept asking myself how someone could be so selfish, so manipulative, so willing to destroy everything we had. I wondered if she ever loved me, or if I was just another pawn in her game. Every day was a struggle, trying to stay strong, fighting the urge to give up, and reminding myself that I deserved better than someone who could lie and cheat so easily. One night, I finally confronted her again, this time in a more formal setting with lawyers present. I demanded to know the full truth, how long she'd been planning this, what her real intentions were, and whether she truly cared about what we had. She looked me dead in the eyes and lied again, saying she loved me, that she only wanted a better life and that I was overreacting. But I saw through her. Her words were hollow and her eyes betrayed her. She was a master manipulator and I was just another target. As I sat there listening to her lies, I realized I had to make a choice. I could keep fighting, digging for the truth and trying to hold on to what little of the marriage was left. Or I could accept that she was gone and start rebuilding my life from scratch. I chose the latter. It wasn't easy, and I knew the road ahead would be long and painful, but I refused to let her completely destroy me. In the end, I learned some hard lessons. Trust is fragile, and betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. But I also learned that I am stronger than I thought. I have the resilience to pick myself up after being knocked down, to stand up for myself, and to fight for what's right. I realized that I don't need someone who lies, cheats, and manipulates to be happy. I can find happiness on my own, and I can rebuild what's been lost, step by step. Now, I'm in the thick of the legal process, fighting to reclaim what's mine and to hold her accountable. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I won't let her win. I've learned to be cautious, to trust my instincts, and, most importantly, to value myself enough to walk away from someone who doesn't deserve my trust. It's a painful lesson, but one I had to learn the hard way. And in the end, I hope that by sharing this, someone else might see the signs earlier and protect themselves from a similar betrayal. The final stretch has been the most exhausting, yet somehow the most revealing. After months of legal battles, countless sleepless nights, and a constant battle with my own emotions, I finally started seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. The court hearings revealed the full extent of her deception, her forged signatures, the offshore accounts, the secret savings, and her long-standing plan to leave me with nothing. It was a brutal process, but it was also a necessary one. I had to face her lies head-on and show the court that she'd been manipulating everything for her own benefit. Throughout this ordeal, I learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and resilience. I realized that some people are capable of incredible deception when they think they can get away with it, but I also discovered a strength I didn't know I had. I became more cautious, more aware of red flags I once ignored. I learned to trust my instincts and to listen to that small voice that tells you when something's off. The experience has changed me. I'm more guarded now, but also more determined to protect myself and my future. The most important thing I've come to understand is that justice isn't always swift, and it's rarely easy. But what matters is that I refuse to give her the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I fought for my rights, for my dignity, and for the truth. And in doing so, I found a new sense of purpose. I'm rebuilding my life, piece by piece, with a clearer understanding of what I deserve. I've also become more aware of how easy it is for someone to manipulate and deceive if you're not vigilant enough. Looking back, I won't pretend this has been easy. The pain, the anger, and the betrayal will stay with me for a long time. But I've learned that I have the power to heal, to move forward, and to create a better future for myself. I've also learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to realize what truly matters. Money, possessions, even the person you thought you loved. None of it compares to your own self-worth and integrity. Now I stand here, having fought a long, hard battle, and I can finally say I am free. Free from her lies, manipulation, and betrayal. Free to start over, to trust again, but this time with more caution and wisdom. I hope that sharing my story will serve as a warning to others. Trust is precious, but it should never make you blind. Keep your eyes open, listen to your gut, and never let anyone manipulate you into signing away your rights. Most of all, I want to remind myself that I am stronger than I thought. I survived this chaos, and I will continue to move forward. The pain will fade, but the lessons will stay with me forever. And though I'll carry scars from this experience, I refuse to let them define me. I am rebuilding my life piece by piece, and I am finally taking control. That's the best revenge I could ever ask for.